Okay, so it's 4:30 p.m. and I'm calling this special meeting of the zoning administrator to order. My name is Amy Nicholson and I am the zoning administrator today. We'll move on to zoning administrator business, which is I'll be reading the statement of purpose. The zoning administrator is appointed by the Planning and Economic Development Director and has the responsibility and authority to conduct public meetings and hearings and to act on applications for minor or reduced review authority projects or entitlements, land use permits. A determination or decision by the zoning administrator may be appealed to the Design Review Board, Cultural Heritage Board, Planning Commission, or City Council as applicable to the decision. All actions taken by the zoning administrator may be appealed within 10 calendar days. If the final day of the appeal period falls on a non-business day, the appeal period will be extended to the next business day. Okay, now we'll move on to our scheduled items. And we have one today. So this is a public meeting for Pullman Lofts Phase 3. This is design review, and Senior Planner Sheikh Hawley will be providing the staff presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Nicholson. And let's start the presentation. So the project before you, Pullman Loft Phase 3, is located at 700, 720, and 726 Wilson Street. The applicant is proposing a 6-story apartment building that will have 69 units and 21 parking spaces on one parcel and 52 surface parking spaces on 2 separate parcels. I will go into details within the next slides. So the site is located right within our historic downtown Railroad Square within a walking distance. The star shows location of the proposed site, project site. The parcels shown within the red border are where the project is being proposed. There are structures that will be demolished as a result of this proposed project. Here are some views of the existing structures and view from Wilson Street. There are 2 structures on the corner lot that will be demolished. One parcel is currently vacant and one building also will be demolished. The site is zoned neighborhood mixed use, which is consistent with our general plan land use designation of neighborhood mixed use. And the floor area ratio for this site is 3, and the proposed project is at the ratio of FAR at 2.9. So it meets the requirement. And here is a site plan, shows the proposed location of the building with the parking and 2 parcels that will be merged for the surface parking spaces. And here is the landscape plan that shows the proposed landscaping. So as a result of this project, 10 trees will be removed, and the applicant is proposing 9 trees that will be placed in the parking lot, 2 trees on the corner lot where the building will be demoed, and there will be 5 small-scale trees facing Wilson Street. Also, there will be some street trees planted for this project, and there will be also frontage improvement for this project along Wilson Street. And here is the elevation of the project. The building will be similar to, in color, similar to other phases of Pullman Loft. There will be small Juliet balconies also provided. There's a variety of colors, and that's overall, and similar materials will be used. And here is the overall aerial view for the proposed building. Here is another aerial view for this project. The project was also presented to the Design Review Board as a concept item, and the Design Review Board had a total of 3 main questions. One of the questions was asking the applicant to confirm if the proposed bedrooms comply with the building code because there was no windows. And then another question was compliance with the ADA accessible spaces within the parking lots. And the third question was about why the project includes a separate surface parking. And the applicant response was there is a need for the parking, so they are providing the parking spaces. And also one of the board members recommended to add more landscaping in front of the parking lot to soften the visual look of the parking space. And since the project was notified, since the concept design review was notified, staff has received comments related to this project. Majority of the comments are in support of the project and they support the proposed project location. There are comments regarding, well, majority supported it, but there were comments and concerns about the parking. However, staff responded to those comments that this project or site is located within the downtown station area specific plan where no minimum parking is required. And also the applicant is aware of those comments and concerns. And we had comments about the building height concern. Again, staff response was the building meets the FAR ratio in downtown. The project meets with this requirement. The comments, and also there were questions about number of the units and if project includes any affordable units on the site. This project does not provide any affordable units on the site, but the other phases provide that affordable units. Yesterday, also staff received one call supporting the project from a neighbor who has a business in that area, but showed concerns about the parking again. And today we have received an email from a person named James Lloyd. And James reminds the city of its obligation to abide by the state law and the CEQA and support the project, and reminds the city to approve the project. Yeah, that was the one, and I shared that with the applicant team also today. So let me look just any comments. One comment was also about a better design for the building. Recommended providing solars for the parking lot and more like a landscaping for the parking area. And the project has been reviewed in compliance with the Environmental Quality Act, California Environmental Quality Act, and this project qualifies for 2 exemptions. One is statutory exemption, 151A2, consistent with the downtown station area specific plan, and the second is categorical exemption under CEQA section 15332. And with that, the Planning and Economic Development Department recommends that the zoning administrator by resolution approve a design review permit for the Pullman Loft Phase 3 project located at 700, 720, and 726 Wilson Street, file number DR24-36. The applicant also has a presentation that would like to go over that presentation.
Okay. Thank you for your presentation. We can go into the applicant's presentation and then I can ask.
Sure.
Question.
Same meeting. What is it?
Thought you were reminding me to open public comment. I was like, oh no. Yes.
Not yet.
Maybe I have to stop the sharing and share the other page. Okay.
Not
Okay. This is the first page.
Sure, yeah. Hi, my name is Jim Keddy. I'm here representing the Phoenix team for the Pullman View project. Next slide. Some context about Phoenix. Experienced developer with over 40 years of experience, built over 2,500 units across multiple states. A strong track record in financing, redevelopment, and neighborhood revitalization. This is our design team. Consists of BKV, which is the architect, Justin Heacock, a landscape architect, ISE as the structural engineer, Adobe as the civil engineer, and Govis handling the MEP. Right. Some project details, a lot of what Monet discussed here. 6-story building, 69 units, a mix of studios, 1s and 2s, 73 parking spaces, and amenities, including fitness center, media room, game room, indoor, outdoor lounge. And those amenities will also be shared with the other phases in the project. Some site context, again, similar to what Monet shared here, showing what the buildings will be replacing. These buildings have outlived their useful life, and so this will bring help revitalize the area. Site and landscape plan improving the pedestrian experience here, contributing a greener streetscape and improving the aesthetics of this side of the street on Wilson. The first floor plan here, want to highlight the building entry there on the bottom left of the screen as the main entry to the building. There's also entries to the rear facing the parking and exit off of the right side of the screen here towards 8th Street. We do have bike storage, fitness center on the ground floor, as well as the leasing center and mail package areas. Second, in the 5th floor plans, through the 5th floor plan, so very efficient layout here, double loaded corridor, really focused on efficiency. We've got amenity areas on each level of the building. There on the left side of the screen, that one's labeled yoga, but those will continue to be programmed and be available for the residents. And the 6th floor plan here really shown to highlight the indoor-outdoor amenity just on the top right corner there as a available amenity for the residents. In elevations, thought was put here to introduce some architectural elements to break up the kind of avoid a monolithic design and create visual interest. So the use of colors and of course the Juliet balconies and significant amount of glass to create visual interest. You can go to the next one. Building materials focus here was on high quality, durable, low maintenance materials and a variety of colors to help break up the elevations. Unit mix, we've got studios really geared towards kind of the young professional, 1 bedrooms more for the broad appeal, and then 2 bedrooms suitable for small families or potentially roommates as well. Then here are the floor plans, very efficient living spaces. We've introduced, as you can see on the top of the top of the page here, Juliet balconies with sliding glass doors, which really help bring in natural light to these units, which we feel is important. Then those are some more unit types. And then again, just the building in the context of what's there today. And if you go to the next one, you can see it as it sits amongst the other 2 phases of the project. Buildings A and B, Holman Loss was the first phase, and then Building C, which is currently in lease up. And so this looks to round that out. And that concludes my presentation, and thank you for your time and open for any questions.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I do have just a few questions and then I'll go ahead and open up public comment. And one question is related to the balconies, and I may not have seen this correctly, but I recall that the renderings look a little different. Like maybe it seems to follow the balconies that are on, I think, phase 2 and phase 1. But I'm assuming what's shown on the material sheet, so it's like, looks more just vertical, is the
Correct.
what you guys are
Yeah.
Okay. And then, and this is a question for either staff or the applicant, but it was described that this went to the design review board for concept review, and there were a few questions. I'm wondering if there were any changes to the plans based on those questions. Or
So for the question regarding the bedrooms and egress through windows, that resulted in a change in building typology, which the building department will ultimately opine on. So it went from a type 3B building to a type 3A, which is allowable under the code. I guess the configuration of the units is allowable under that section of the code. So that resolved essentially that piece. And then as it related to the parking area, and bringing green area to the front of, we have shifted a bioretention basin that was largely in the center of the parking area to the front. So in an attempt to accommodate that.
Okay. Great. And I think that concludes my questions. Before we go in to public comment, actually, because we have board member Weigel here, if you have any comments or things you want to share, since we
Sure, yeah,
have you
so
here.
I was remembering the bedroom egress thing too, so I was looking it up. It's just for anybody who's watching. CBC chapter 1031.2, and so this talks about when you have sleeping rooms below the fourth story, you're required to have an emergency escape and rescue opening from a bedroom. And the very first exception is in groups R1 and R2, and I'm assuming this is probably one of
Right.
those constructed of type 1, type 2A, type 3A, or type 4 construction. And so equipped throughout with an approved automatic sprinkler system, so it wouldn't be required. But ultimately, I think, the chief building official and the building department would need to weigh on that. I think, the question came up during DRB, likely from me, because I think it was listed on that it was type 3B or type 5 or something on the
3B,
plans.
right,
Yeah. So that's why I was kind of scratching my head on that one. The board, regarding the design of the building, I think the board was generally favorable with the aesthetics of the building and how it relates to the adjacent Pullman development. The only couple of comments I think that maybe Monet didn't translate that I think merit mentioning would be the fencing along the parking lot to I guess it would be to the north. So the fencing directly on Wilson Street, the fact that it's called out to be a black chain link fence right now, I think, it likely should match the aesthetics of the fencing across the street for the other part of the Pullman development, which I think is a combination of metal and wood. But I would only think from kind of that, just on that Wilson frontage, would kind of help it enhance the pedestrian experience. I think the rest of that lot could absolutely be black vinyl coated chain link fence. It's adjacent to, industrial buildings and other parking lots and things like that. And so, that's not, I think, concern there, but again, I guess against the pedestrian experience, would, kind of, I think would need to be changed. Where is this other thing I was talking about? One other thing was, in relation to the other buildings on the property or the developments, this is a bit more flat in many ways, where it doesn't read so much that way is the variation of color, which is appreciated and nice. But I think, it may behoove you to take another small look, potentially at kind of maybe a recess that those balconies might be able to create from a massing perspective, kind of a push-pull, because it is a very flat facade, except for the, what side is that? The east side, I guess. Yeah, the east side. And then one thing to note that folks may have not picked up on, but is actually is a really nice element that is the kind of top floor. Yeah, it's in that photo there. The top floor kind of exterior space, and how that it's creating a little bit of relief up there, which is nice. And we're seeing that on a lot of multi-use projects now, is that kind of rooftop deck for residents to utilize. So that was an appreciated design element of the project. And then finally, it looks like the parapet is going to block all those VRF mini splits. And so the only question would be is just, let's please make sure everything's blocked from a mechanical screening perspective. But I think, you know, based on the height of the parapet shown in the elevations, it looks like it's maybe 5 feet. And those guys are typically about 3.5, 4 feet. So, and if there's maybe an ERV on there for fresh air, possibly that might be the big unit. Those are typically shorter as well. So it doesn't look like there's a large piece of mechanical equipment that's going to be, you know, kind of sticking its head out, like popping out of a gopher hole, if you will. But yeah, other than that, I think, like I said, the board generally appreciated the design, the colors. I think we were really pleased with the addition of parking as well, even though you didn't have to do it. I think you as a team felt you needed to do it. And so then I guess the only question I would have of staff is, you know, our design guidelines talk about covered parking. The zoning code talks about covered parking. However, this is exempt from parking requirements, so I'm not sure how that kind of overlays one another. But that being said, the parking lot to the north does have some orchard parking along its north face, which is kind of the north side does have orchard parking, very much so. Yeah, on the left side of the screen there, which isn't in the design guidelines. The only piece that doesn't is kind of the central part and the L shape on the right-hand side. And so, you know, that's more of a design guideline request than a mandate, but generally that would get, you know, if this were a typical project, that would get offset by the covered parking requirement. So I think that's more of a question of staff about how the zoning code would be applied, given there's no parking requirement. So I think that's it for me and my question. And then you want to mention the stucco thing? Or no? Okay, all right. Cool, so that's it.
Okay. Monet, or
So
do you want to respond?
I just want to respond about the chain link fence. We have added a condition. Amy, do you want to read it? Do you have it in front of you or? Conditions have been added about the chain link fence, and also a condition has been added that all outside mechanical equipment shall be screened. So that condition has been
Yeah,
added.
perfect.
And the condition about the chain link fence, I can read it to you if you want. It says chain link fencing shall be prohibited for the surface parking lot along Wilson Street, as you mentioned. So behind it, around it can be whatever the applicant prefers. But it says, at the end, it says, okay, in part of the building and may include for the frontage, iron, wood, corrugated metal, cable wire material, or an alternative design approved by planning staff. So they have an option to propose something else. And what else? Surface parking.
Oh, that's my notes. Okay.
And about the parking spaces, design guidelines talks about the ratio of the trees. So it says for every 5 parking spot, provide 1 tree, and it can be orchard style. So the applicant is providing 10 trees for that site for 50, what was the number of the parking there? 52. So 10 for 52 parking spaces. Okay, and again, because it's in the downtown, parking is not required, so public
Exactly.
parking.
That's why I was just curious how that might intertwine with one another.
And
Okay.
any questions for staff?
I have no additional questions. Thank you. Okay, so with that, I'll go ahead and open public comment.
If you're attending in person and would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand. Administrator, there is no public comment.
Okay, I will go ahead and close the public comment period. And let's move on to discussing the resolution that's before the zoning administrator. So this would be to approve design review for Pullman Phase 3. And I did review the resolution in detail. I think that staff has done an excellent job of making each of the required findings required by the zoning code for design review. I do appreciate the specific conditions that have been added. Monet just discussed 2 of them related to screening of mechanical equipment and also addressing the fence design. And I think it strikes a nice balance of being practical and cost effective for the fence area that is not fronting Wilson Street. And so hopefully that flexibility works for the applicant. And there are a number of different design options that are outlined here, which I think is a positive. I do have just some kind of minor suggested edits to some of the conditions, and this is really just to ensure that they read in a way that translates well in the preparation of construction documents. And so I'll go through those in just a second, but overall, just speaking to the design, I think it's designed in a really positive way. I like how it relates to the two other phases of the development. It was interesting because when I was looking at the plans, it didn't seem like it was a box, because I think of the use of materials and also colors, and as you mentioned, the glazing and the balconies. I think it really does help to add almost like movement to the building. I appreciate the landscaping that is provided in the parking lot. And I think to the extent that there can be trees, I know it's a challenge with the bioretention area, and we're limited on what we can plant there. But I think any trees that can be added, if that's a possibility, would be great. But I think what's proposed is will really be a nice benefit to help soften the streetscape there. So given that I can make the findings, I wanted to just discuss those changes to the conditions of approval. So I understand, Ms. Shakali, that you shared these conditions and that the applicant has agreed to them. So the changes I wanted to discuss are to conditions 2, 3, and 4. And so they're just related to the stucco application, the plans that would be submitted for the building permit, and then just site visits prior to final occupancy. And we should start the first one. So this is condition number 2, is really only modified. And I did have a discussion with board member Weigel about this, because he's an architect and knows more of this language than I do. So I'm just kind of reading through here to see where it's different. So basically, we're proposing now that the condition 2 would read, and I can share this with you after. The applicant shall ensure that all exterior plaster (parentheses stucco) installation complies with the entirety of section 2512 and all referenced requirements in the current edition of the California Building Code. So that really just ensures that the current version of the California Building Code is what would be required. And then it includes a little bit, an additional sentence from that particular section of the building code. So in its entirety, it would read, plastering with cement plaster shall be not less than 3 coats were applied over metal lath or wire fabric lath or gypsum board backing as specified in section 2510.5, and shall not be less than 2 coats were applied over masonry or concrete. And so that's currently what's in there. The addition would be, if the plaster surface is to be completely covered by veneer or other facing material, or is completely concealed by another wall, plaster application need only be 2 coats, provided that the total thickness is as set forth in ASTM C926. So it just provides a little more from the building code, essentially. And then I'm going to let board member Weigel read this next one and talk about it. I suspected so. And so this one is related to just details to include as a part of the building permit submittal. And I've just wrote that down.
Yep.
Can you just announce that we do not accept on Zoom? Just one person is keep raising their hands.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
I'd just like to acknowledge the member of the public that is raising their hand on Zoom. Unfortunately, we have already concluded the public comment portion of this meeting.
We're not taking comments via Zoom, only in person.
Oh, and that is correct. We're only taking comments in person right now, but we can certainly respond to any questions that you have by way of email. And I think our planner can reach out to you and share her email address.
Fix this right here. Not realizing anything. Okay, so the next thing says, the construction documents as submitted for the building permit must include detailing for all transitions from exterior plaster finishes to openings, including but not limited to doors, windows, louvers, not lovers. Autocorrect there, getting me. Louvers, etc. The documents submitted must also include the manufacturer's specifications, including installation instructions for the exterior plaster finishes, doors, windows, also louvers. Louvers, and any other openings through the exterior finish assembly. The submitted documents must also include any associated finish details with regard to the exterior envelope and transitions of materials. And so the idea behind that is that it's to give the Planning Economic Development Department information with which that they can verify installation of elements upon the building upon final inspection. So it's just kind of putting a box around it and including it as part of the conditions, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I made,
Board
so
member.
louvers.
Okay, I
Yeah,
appreciate that clarification.
louvers,
Wanted to
sorry.
make sure we got all the terms correct. Okay.
Because there's parking, right? And usually with parking, you have like louvers for airflow. And so my fat fingers made a couple of typos. I apologize.
Okay, and so that was a modification to what is currently condition 3 in the resolution. So it just provides a little bit more detail and context. And then the last condition is condition 4. And this condition, I think what I hope to achieve here is that the planning staff who would be conducting a site visit have an opportunity to do it maybe earlier in the process, or maybe there's more than one visit, because what I think we'd all like to avoid is a situation where it looks like maybe something needs to be addressed, but then we've already applied the final coat of stucco and then it causes a time delay and additional cost. And so I think if we can modify the condition to reflect that it's like maybe we say planning staff shall conduct periodic site visits or site visits as appropriate to ensure that all exterior plaster has been appropriately applied prior to final coat and after final coat or application, I think would be
I
helpful.
would suggest, and of course, I'm in the public, so I don't know if I can talk.
You're also here as the applicant, so you can
Okay.
talk, please.
I would suggest that we also, what Jay and I had discussed was we would actually do a mock-up.
Yeah.
Just prior to the beginning of the installation. And I'm sure Commissioner Weigel would be very supportive of that, because that's the best way to do it.
Sure.
Yeah, prior to installation, having planning staff come out, meet with the contractor on the specific area of the building where conditions of concern exist, talk about what is to occur, and can kind of see what the buildup of the layers are.
Yeah, that would be great. And that was actually a discussion that I had with board member Weigel. So that would be appreciated. So maybe we can add that into that condition. And is the applicant okay with those changes? Okay. Great. So I will be signing the resolution to approve this project with those changes. Just one minor thing for staff. At the end of it, we should say this streamlined design review now that our code, it just changed. And so now we call it something different. So that's just a clerical thing.
Like 2 weeks ago just changed.
Yes,
Yeah.
probably before you drafted this resolution or after, right after you drafted it. So yes, with that I will sign the resolution and thank you very much for bringing another great project to Santa Rosa. We are excited to see it built. And I do want to make sure that members of the public know that this action is final unless an appeal is filed with the Planning and Economic Development Department. I'm sorry, the City Clerk's Department, because this would be appealed to the City Council. And that would be within 10 calendar days of today's decision. That's pursuant to zoning code section 2062-030. And for this item, that date would be Monday, March 24th. And that concludes our business for today's meeting. So this meeting of the zoning administrator is now adjourned. Thank you.